Hi, everyone. Welcome back. It is the MDL Solutions Coddiwomple. I'm Adam Oldfield, and it is exciting to be here once again as the adventure has come to a close. Owen McHughes is the gentleman riding the bike who has finished his goal of crossing 8 countries from Lublin, Poland, all the way to Dublin, Ireland. And with that, he's joining me today to answer a few questions of his adventure. Owen, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, I have to say, we talked through the process of while you were riding. There is very much adventures and so forth that you went through. Let's discuss a little bit about what was the greatest challenge over this 4,000 kilometer ride.
So there's a couple of days where, there were 200K to be done in a day. 200K in a day is a big one. But really, I think the biggest challenge that stands out of my mind is that last chunk of northern France. I had landed in France. I had landed actually in Nancy. We did the stuff with the mayor, did the stuff then the next day with the consulate. I was taking the train from Paris across to Nancy, thinking, tomorrow I have to ride 200 kilometers. And even before the ride started, I didn't want to do it. I just didn't want to do it. And then the next day, and I got up, and again, I couldn't shake that attitude. I just didn't want to do it. And I delayed. I didn't start actually until 11 a.m., which to cycle 200K is late. I knew then at that point in time, I wasn't going to be finishing in the daytime. I wasn't going to be finishing with light or anything. I knew I'd be finishing in the dark. The ride itself and started getting, actually, when I finally did get started at 11 a.m., Google Maps kind of sent me down these little French country back roads and stuff, and up into fields actually as well. And it was a real arduous kind of struggle to actually get back onto the main road and then carry on. Going through all these little towns and villages, not only were shops shut, but houses were shut too. And I just had this thought in the back of my head that I'd never find a shop that was open where I'd be able to get food or water or anything else. It just through the day, it was just this continual slog, just to get through to the end of the day with the headwind, trying to go through all these gravel roads, and then rain, intermittent rain here and there. So the last couple of days in northern France, I did the 200K on the Sunday. The next day was get up and do 160K. That too was in headwind with intermittent rain, and I remember even getting to my accommodation at about 9 o'clock that evening after doing 160K, and just having to laugh. Just as I was into the final 3K or something, it started to rain again. I was just, of course it would. Why wouldn't it? My shoes were soaked at that point in time. Socks were wet. Everything was wet. I had gone through periods of wet, it would dry up, wet, it would dry up. And then right before heading to the accommodation, there was just that kind of final shower just to remind me what the day had been. And then the next day after that, it wasn't a long day. I had to do 100K. But again, actually, I remember I had to hunker down under a bridge and just wait for the rain to pass. So yeah, the last 3 days in France, I'd say, were the biggest challenge.
It sounds like quite the challenge that you had to endure. If we were to do this ride, and we were talking to Owen at the beginning, is there anything you would give advice to yourself as to what you would do different on the ride?
Yeah, well, before jumping into would have changed or what would have done differently, I'll start off by saying what I was happy with having happened. So that I had accommodation booked every night for the entire 37 days. I think that was actually really beneficial. I know that it puts pressure on you, and if things go right or if things go wrong, you kind of have to be at that end point by the end of the day, otherwise you kind of lose your money on the accommodation. By the end of it, it took 37 days, and I think the thing that helped me stay on track and stick to the schedule was the fact that I had accommodation booked every day. And certainly then, those days in northern France, it would have been, if I didn't have accommodation booked, easy enough just to jump on the phone and, you know what, I'm just going to cut the day short and whatever else. Whereas having the accommodation booked, I just endured through, whether it was super hot days, or I was really tired, or I was really hungry, or I just didn't feel like riding anymore, or something else than externally. I just had to crack on and get the miles done and get the distance done. And this summer in Europe, you know, temperatures were hitting at times and in places 50 degrees Celsius. So really hot. Far too hot then to be cycling during the summer, particularly doing the average day was 150k a day. So certainly too hot to be riding that consecutively. I got scorched going through Poland and Germany and stuff, but still coming into Wales, UK or Ireland, like the weather was still pretty nice and it was fairly moderate, and there were a few days where it rained, but on the whole, nothing really to complain about, given it was like 5 weeks, and in 5 weeks you're gonna see some sort of rain as you go. As far as things then to do differently, it depends on what the overall goals are. So for this, it was kind of just get through. What I would do differently would be probably sit down and look at what the goals were then for the ride, and adjust daily distances based on that.
So let me just preface this with, we jumped right into how it was and everything, but just for everyone who's watching this for the first time, you packed up from Poland, you rode your bicycle, manual power, there was no hybrids, there was no electric, this was all Owen power, and you were riding with the vision of raising awareness for Protect Earth and the environment, in addition to how the environment can be impacted, zero carbons and otherwise. And MDL stood behind this to bring awareness to this program. So can you maybe tell us a little bit about the bike you were riding, the equipment you were using? First of all, what bike were you using when you were riding, number one? And number two, while you were riding through this whole process, how did the bike handle for 4,000K?
Yeah, so I was riding a completely stock Ribble CGR titanium, and how it held up through the entirety of the 4,000K, I had 3 punctures. That was the extent of my mechanical issues. 3 punctures. But yeah, so as far as the bike held up, and as far as the equipment that I was riding on, and then Howie's was the clothing supplier. They gave me clothes throughout the ride. What I'd arranged then with them is not to bring 5 weeks worth of clothes, but instead then at some of the different points that I was stopping off in, they would post out care packages. That was a really great way to do it. What it would mean is I'd ride for a certain distance, I'd pick up a care package, there'd be clean clothes in it, I'd just swap it out. What I ended up doing then in the end was, from wherever I was in Europe, I just posted the clothes then onwards to Dublin. Meaning that when I finished in Dublin then, all I had to do was quickly launder them, and again I had clean clothes for everything else that was going on afterwards. Howie's team too, like they put in little notes or cards or whatever else, which is great to kind of pick up. And then the last package that came through, instead of having shorts and t-shirts, which they had been sending me previously, a few long sleeve merino tops with a note saying, "We know it's getting colder." Kit and equipment that I had and I used for the ride, no complaints.
Maybe, Owen, you can identify 3 things. One is, who were our sponsors in this process, number one. Then number 2, the cause, which was Protect Earth. Maybe you can speak a little bit to that and why and what we were trying to do with this ride.
So the ride itself came about because MDL had approached me, which, I mean, is a phenomenal thing. It's actually one of the things that I think I appreciate most about this ride, that MDL had enough faith in me that I'd be able to ride 4,000 kilometers across Europe. Because it's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. So that was a huge sort of confidence boost from the gate. So MDL was the principal sponsor of this whole ride and the entire thing. Howie's was a clothing supplier. Howie's is a Welsh organic clothing manufacturer here, quite close to where I live. We also then had support from Ribble, who are a UK-based bike manufacturer, And then Cycle Guard as well was a company that provided insurance then for this ride. And you're right, yeah. So the charity then that was riding for and raising both money and awareness for was a charity called Protect Earth. It's a UK-based charity that actually a friend of mine started. So started about 2 years ago, just because of his overall concern towards the environment, what was being done, and what he felt, I guess, not enough was being done as it is. And so he founded the charity, and he's actually really great partnering with landowners, farmers. He's really great at raising money, capital for purchase of new equipment, purchase of trees, or even then purchase or leasing of land. The charity's overall focus, they say it perfectly on the website, is to plant a whole lot of trees. Phil Sturgeon, the guy who founded the charity and today is the chair, he's got goals to. Today they're planting across, I think about 60 different sites in the UK. This year they have the goal of planting 80,000 trees in the UK. But Phil himself then has visions and ideas and expanding this across Europe, across North America, which are footprints he's both worked in and his previous role then, and then also looking how can we scale globally. So he's really focused on what they're doing today, establishing the brand and establishing Protect Earth, and then also looking at what needs to be done then for tomorrow, Protect Earth.
What advice would you give to someone that wanted to do or take on this challenge?
My source for this comes from a very interesting place. Somewhere, somehow along the ride, describe for whatever reason it is that you want, I came across this audiobook, Things People Don't Tell Vets, and I forget the author, but the one thing that she said that's actually applicable across all paths and choices in life is simply that a lot of people get caught up saying, in this particular instance, what she was talking about is if I lose 10 pounds, I'll buy that pair of jeans. If I do something within like a weight goal, I'll then do this. And a lot of people put too much pressure on what they will achieve before they actually start working towards that goal. So they put obstacles and barriers in the way, I guess is a simpler way of putting it. And the reason that then applies then to this ride is somebody will say, I need to have a certain amount of equipment, or a certain kind of equipment, a certain type of equipment before I go and do this bike ride, or I need to have a certain level of fitness or a certain number of kilometers or whatever. And more than anything else, all you're doing is thinking of obstacles and barriers in place and in your way. So any advice that I would have to give somebody is just go and do it. And sure, for your first adventure, don't tackle 4,000 kilometers across Europe. That's too much. It's too big. But instead, try and do a bike pack across the weekend. So maybe take a tent and some cooking stuff, and just, doesn't matter what it is, just chuck it on the bike some way, shape or form, and hop out on the bike. And just remember that 1, things are always going to go wrong. 2, it's like a little bit of an experiment. And 3, just have fun with it.
Now, talking about the adventure's over, you've had some time to recoup. Let's talk a little bit about what is the future Coddiwomple? Where do we go from here?
Again, I'm tremendously appreciative of the opportunity that MDL sort of recognized in me, as well as then extended to me by offering the invitation to go and cycle across Europe. It's a great platform then, hopefully, that we can continue to develop across a number of years, looking at different parts of the world. People coming in contact with those ideas, those unique ideas of how people live in other parts of the world, how they might be able to adopt that, or how it might drive some sort of awareness for themselves too, with the potential then of looking and exploring the next adventure in 2023, or the next Coddiwomple in 2023.
Owen, thanks for your time. Thanks for riding for 1,000K, enduring the adventures you did. I'm Adam Oldfield for MDL. This is our Coddiwomple Adventure Tour, and we will be having many more coming up in 2023. Thanks for watching.